nowadays you got to have that confidence because people nowadays.
Before we get straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Easons and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping wonderfully well. My name is Aaron and this is the football preview for this weekend's games taking place in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. This weekend we've two matches taking place: Dublin against Kildare and Monaghan against Tyrone. The Leinster Senior Football Championship Final and the Ulster Senior Football Championship Final. Two very important games, two games to decide who else will be joining Mayo and Kerry in the last four of the All-Ireland Championship. Who will be playing Mayo and who will be playing Kerry? Dublin and Kildare, the winner of that game will be playing Mayo, and the winner of Monaghan and Tyrone will be playing Kerry. So certainly a lot on the line here going into these games. And of course, if you are new around here, hit the like button and subscribe. Share this out to your friends and family. I do appreciate all the recent subscribers, recent comments, and yeah, you know, I very much appreciate all the support on the channel. It certainly gives me motivation to keep going, keep making videos, and keep making content on this channel. And we'll start with the Leinster Final. It's Dublin and Kildare taking place at Croke Park on 4 o'clock on Sunday. A big game without doubt between Dublin and Kildare. Dublin are obviously going in as massive favourites. They've won the last 10 Leinster championships in a row, of course, and this is a Dublin team that is very well fancied to win this game and win it quite comfortably. And I know a lot of people have been overlooking Kildare, and there's been some debate online. I've seen a tweet from John Egan who was saying, you know, it's a very disrespectful towards Kildare to be overlooking them and to be previewing Dublin and Mayo already. Well, look, listen, that's just kind of how the All-Ireland Championship is structured. I mean, people have already been previewing Kerry and Dublin for the entirety of the championship. People have already been talking about Kerry going into the All-Ireland semi-finals. We all knew Kerry were going to get there, barring a massive hiccup, and Dublin not getting there in the All-Ireland semi-finals would be, you know, a massive slip-up. There's no two ways about it. That's not to disrespect Kildare. Look, listen, Kildare won an All-Ireland at under-20 level in 2018. They have some very good young players coming through. They've one of the best managers in the game in Jack O'Connor, and Kildare are definitely moving in the right direction. And 2-3 years down the line, with Kildare's young players, you know, getting more mature, getting more into the game, getting more game time, and Dublin potentially on a slide, Kildare could very well be the team to eventually end Dublin's reign in the Leinster Championship. But it's not going to happen this year. Let's be perfectly honest. It's just not going to happen this year. I do think Kildare will push Dublin quite close. I do think they'll cause them a couple of problems. But there's two kind of schools of thought for me coming into this. When Dublin played Meath in the Leinster Championship final last year, a lot of people thought that that game was going to be very competitive. A lot of people thought that Meath were coming in on the back of hammering Wicklow, hammering Kildare, a very competitive Division 1 campaign. Okay, they didn't win a game, but they looked very good. They had new players like Jordan Morris, Matthew Costello, Killian O'Sullivan was looking very good. James Conlon looked like a very talented footballer, of course, as well. Ronan Jones, another, for example. And it didn't turn out that way. Dublin absolutely wiped the floor with Meath, beat them by 25 plus. It wasn't even a contest. It was over after about 15 minutes, and it was a pretty grim Leinster final for many people. Other than myself as a Dublin fan, I very much enjoyed it. But, you know, coming into this game, could we see something similar? Could Dublin really turn it on in a Leinster final? And that's kind of when they tend to do so. They tend to come into the Leinster final, and that is, you know, this is now where Dublin need to really be at their best. They need to get the rustiness out of themselves, like Dean Rock, for example, missing 45s and frees in the last game. Cormac Costello maybe at different stages, missing chances. Brian Fenton with one or two misplaced passes in the Wexford game, for example. Like, that needs to come out of the system. If Dublin are going to win 7 in a row, they need to be at their absolute best, especially in an All-Ireland final if they are to get there, even an All-Ireland semi-final against Mayo. But, you know, one thing I've said down the years with a lot of teams, and one of the main reasons why I feel Mayo weren't successful in 2016 and 2017 in those All-Ireland finals, for example, was because throughout the entirety of their championship season, the preparation wasn't there. You know, they were scraping by games. They weren't at their absolute best. And you can't just turn it on when you play the absolute best. Like, if that preparation hasn't been there for the entirety of the season, like, it's like anything in life, really. If you don't prepare, you know, prepare to fail. And that's kind of how it is here. And, like, for Dublin in particular, they need to show that they are still the best team in the country. They need to show that they're still one of the best teams of all time by going out there and beating Kildare quite convincingly, because they have the players to do so. Look, listen, let's forget the bench for a minute. We know that the players coming off the bench aren't quite there. Colin Basquel, Tom Lahiff, like good players, don't get me wrong, but they're not players that are going to change a game. They're not players that are going to come off the bench and win you All-Irelands like Kevin McManaman in 2011 and the amount of times he came off the bench. Paddy Andrews, Alan Brogan, Bernard Brogan, even at different stages late on in their careers when they came off the bench and won games. But on the pitch, 15 on 15, Dublin still have an exceptional team. Like, they still have that spine, that same spine of their team that was there winning All-Irelands in previous years. Okay, they don't have Stephen Cluxton. That's a massive downgrade. Obviously, no disrespect to Evan Comerford, could potentially go on to be as good as Cluxton. We don't know yet, but certainly from the early signs, haven't seen him against Meath, that same influence isn't quite there. And defensively, okay, there are issues. There's no Owen Merchant, John Small is injured, Eric Lowndes is retired, Robbie McDade is injured. You still don't have Jack McCaffrey, like a very inexperienced defence. Johnny Cooper's had his injury problems and probably is aging, with all due respect to Johnny Cooper there. So there are, a lot of concerns, but the same spine is still there. Brian Fenton, Con O'Callaghan, Michael Fitzsimons, Dean Rock, Kieran Kilkenny, like they're that's the main spine in that team. You'd include Cluxton in that as well. Okay, he isn't there, but you've still got that other, that spine of players that are still there, and they're all game changers, they're all game winners, they're all best players in the country, like all-star winners. If Dublin win the All-Ireland, those 5 players are going to win All-Stars. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's normally how it works. And look, listen, in the first half against Meath in that semi-final, Dublin were absolutely brilliant. Their passing was brilliant. The way they moved the ball was brilliant. Creating goal chances, creating opportunities. And, okay, fair enough, maybe the Brian Fenton situation wasn't a penalty. But, look, listen, they were getting into those positions. They were creating chances. And they probably would have scored a goal anyway had that not have been given a penalty, because Noel Scully was about to tap it into the back of the net. So I do expect Dublin to try and get back to that level. If they don't play well in this game and they don't look good, you would have serious doubts about them going into an All-Ireland semi-final. Because for me, I think they have the potential to win this quite comfortably by 5-10. But, it's a hard one to know. Can they just turn it around? Because they've been sloppy against Wexford and sloppy against Meath. And look, listen, let's speak about Kildare, because I don't want to overlook Kildare, and I don't want to, I know there are Kildare fans subscribed to the channel, and I quite like Kildare. They've a lot of good young players coming through at the moment, like what I said, from that under 20 2018 All-Ireland success. Like Jimmy Hyland looks like an exceptional talent, obviously got the goal in the Meath game. Dereck Kirwan wasn't part of that under 20 All-Ireland group, but he looks like another very talented footballer coming through at the moment. Daniel Flynn's been a player that I've been talking about for a long time, really. Probably one of the most underrated footballers in the country on his day. Probably Kildare's best player realistically over the past 5 to 10 years or so, obviously since the retirements of Johnny Doyles and whatnot. He's an exceptional footballer, and obviously he was in Australia, came back last year, hasn't really looked himself, but in the Westmeath game he looked more or less back to his absolute best, like setting up that goal for Jimmy Hyland. That was a brilliant bit of play on the right hand side, and then obviously getting that goal as well, just a really tidy finish. And was really involved, like really dictated the play at different stages from that corner forward position, got in and around the defence, caused all sorts of problems. And look, listen, it will be interesting to see how Dublin try and stop Daniel Flynn, because, you are looking at Dublin's defence and there certainly is a lot of inexperience in there. Like, just looking at Dublin's full-back line in particular, you had Davy Byrne, you had Sean McMahon and Michael Fitzsimons in there in the Meath game. And, you could have a situation where Sean McMahon maybe picks up Daniel Flynn, maybe Michael Fitzsimons is the man to pick up Jimmy Hyland. So, like, those are two interesting matchups. Look, listen, Michael Fitzsimons, I've said it time and time again, probably one of the best defenders in the country, but certainly he doesn't have the same defensive prowess that was around him in previous seasons. He doesn't have Cluxton behind him. There's no Johnny Cooper in there. There's no Robbie McDade in there. No Jack McCaffrey. So he is a little bit more exposed than previous seasons. Sean McMahon's come into the side. I mean, that's an interesting matchup between himself and Daniel Flynn potentially, because I thought that Meath really caused Sean McMahon and that Dublin defence in particular all sorts of problems in the second half. Matthew Costello getting forward from wing-back was causing all sorts of issues. And that kind of, causes another debate really, which is obviously Kevin Flynn of Kildare, because he, when he's been getting forward, he's been causing all sorts of problems, getting on the attack, getting beyond, the full back line, creating that extra bit of space. Could we see Niall Scully potentially on him? And Niall Scully has been fairly quiet, to be fair to him, so far this year in the championship. Could this be a game where maybe he comes alive, or could his influence be curtailed by Kevin Flynn getting forward? And it will be interesting to see how Kildare approach the game, Because, look, listen, if they go man on man, they go toe-to-toe with Dublin, you won't win the game. You need to have that balance between being well defensively set up and breaking on the counter-attack. And look, listen, Jack O'Connor is one of the best managers in the game, and I'm sure he's been waiting ever since he got this job at having a crack at Dublin, because this is the first time he's actually going to manage against Dublin since his Kerry days as manager. So, like, there's a lot on the line here for Jack O'Connor and for Kildare. And I do expect Kildare to put up a good showing. Like, you know, even looking at Neil Flynn as well in the Westmeath game was exceptional. Hit 7 points. Like, and Dublin's defence, like, there are issues there at the moment, just with the inexperience and with so many injuries. Like, you Johnny Cooper, Brian Howard, and James McCarthy actually in the half-back line, of course, in the last game, and that certainly was causing one or two problems. Dublin did look pulled out at different positions at different stages. And certainly don't have the same influence coming off the bench. So could Kildare go and cause an upset? Could they potentially beat the Dubs? I don't think so. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I do expect them to cause a few problems here or there, but I just think Dublin will surely have too much. And I do expect Dublin are going to really show up in this game and produce their absolute best. Whether that's a 15-plus victory, I'm not sure. But I am going to go with Dublin to win it by 9 points. Look, I think Kildare will be in it at different stages. There will be moments where Dublin look a little vulnerable, especially because that's how they've looked for the entirety of the season so far. Against Wexford, they looked out of sorts in the first half. In the Meath game, they looked out of sorts in the second half. I do expect those similar patterns to occur. I expect the likes of Daniel Flynn, the likes of Jimmy Hyland, you know, the likes of Neil Flynn, Kevin Flynn, to cause one or two problems for that Dublin side. But I just think Dublin will surely have too much here, and they'll surely win out the game by 8 or 9 points. But look, listen, crazier things have happened, but I am going to go with Dublin to get the victory by 9 points. We move on to the Ulster Senior Football Championship Final. This game will be taking place on Saturday at Croke Park as well. It is Tyrone going up against Monaghan. And what's interesting is, although Donegal have been more or less the dominant side in Ulster over the past couple of years, you know, won 2 out of what is now the last 4 Ulster Senior Football Championships, obviously in the final last year, but it's actually been Tyrone and Monaghan who've came closer to winning an All-Ireland since Donegal were obviously the last side from Ulster to win an All-Ireland Championship. But, you know, Tyrone and Monaghan played each other the last time they played each other in an All-Ireland semi-final, of course, in 2018. It was Tyrone and Monaghan that day. So, I mean, a very interesting game, this one, because, you know, Monaghan are one of those sides that coming into the championship, in my opinion, they were very hit or miss. They were kind of coming in as a side that you weren't really knowing what you were going to get. Since they've beaten Galway, they've certainly taken a lot of confidence from it. They obviously went on and of course beat Fermanagh, then obviously beat Armagh as well. So like Monaghan have looked very, very good so far. And look, listen, obviously it was a very hard day for Monaghan the last time out against Armagh, obviously with the tragic death of Brendan O'Duffy. Just a horrible day for all GAA and for everyone really. And it was a game, to be honest with you, I still feel that game probably shouldn't have went ahead given the circumstances and given the fact that so many players on the team were good mates with Brendan O'Duffy, and obviously Monaghan is a very tight-knit community. But the game did go ahead, and Monaghan, they stepped up when it mattered, and that's what has impressed me with Monaghan this year, is that when the going has got tough, they have got going themselves. Like Conor McManus obviously scoring last minute points, you know, at the absolute death. Like when you've got a player of that talent, I mean, you've always got a chance. Jack McCarron has looked very good this year, kind of coming back into his 2018 form. Darren Hughes has looked very good as well. So like Monaghan have looked more like the Monaghan of the past couple of years, and you were worried about Monaghan coming into this year's championship. You were thinking, okay, maybe are they over the hill? Maybe they don't have the same talent. But even some of the new lads they've brought onto the side, like Rory Woods and Aaron Mulligan, have definitely provided a different kind of threat. And what it's done is it's meant that teams maybe in the past would be so focused, okay, if we stop Conor McManus, we kind of curtail Monaghan's influence. But now what we're seeing is Monaghan have other players in there, like Jack McCarron and Aaron Mulligan, like I was saying, and it is causing all sorts of problems for opposing defenders and for opposing managers to see how they set up their team. So Monaghan have certainly been a side that I've been very interested in, and they'll be in this game going into the wire without doubt, because you know, they're a team that just doesn't give up, that doesn't seem to lie down. In the Armagh game, they looked beaten. They were on the ropes. You know, they had a massive lead, an 8-point lead. Armagh turned it around in the final quarter, led by 2 points, and Monaghan looked on the ropes. But what they done was they stepped up. They stepped up when it mattered. And even some of the players that they had coming off the bench, like Shane Carey, O'Hanlon got 2 points as well. They're getting an influence from their bench. And Rory Beggan, one of the best goalkeepers in the country without doubt. And I think with this being in Croke Park, it's going to be very interesting to see what Tyrone do with those kickouts, you know, because they pressed up quite a lot in the second half on Sean Patton in the Donegal game. Obviously, Donegal were down to 14 men. Weren't able to have the same influence without Michael Murphy on the pitch, and Tyrone just kept overturning Donegal time and time again from the kickouts. And you know, that'll be a very interesting one, because Rory Beggan can certainly kick right over Tyrone should they, you know, choose a similar strategy. So there's certainly a lot of very intriguing battles here to work out, and it is going to be very interesting. I really do feel like Tyrone are going to win this game though, and the reason why I think that is because Darren McCurry has been in Footballer of the Year form. Like, Paddy Clifford might be the favourite to win Footballer of the Year right now, but Darren McCurry is definitely up there. Like, he has been brilliant so far for Tyrone, brilliant in the Cavan game, brilliant of course in the Donegal game as well, hitting 7 points. Kieran McGeary's looked very impressive as well. Like, he's really stepped up. You've obviously got Frank Burns in there, and of course you've now got Cathal McShane and Conor McKenna coming off the bench, making a massive influence. And, you know, maybe Conor McKenna might start this game, maybe Cathal McShane might start this game. You know, two players that were, you know, a lot of people expected high hopes from this year. Cathal McShane obviously had his injury. Conor McKenna's had an injury as well, obviously not as severe as Cathal McShane's. But to have those two players back, like, they're game changers. They're all-star. You know, obviously Conor McKenna hasn't won an all-star, but like, they're two players that could win an all-star. They're two players that are, you know, on their day, the best on the pitch of who they come up against. And like, they could have a massive difference and bearing on this game. Niall Sludden, I think it's going to be interesting how Monaghan stop his influence. Thought he caused all sorts of problems in the Donegal game, hit 3 points. Just adding that attacking input, getting forward, and you know, he was the extra man in many ways in that Donegal game, and Tyrone used him very well. So it's going to be a very intriguing game. The fact it's at Croke Park as well, you know, two very good goalkeepers are kicking out from the back as well, in Niall Morgan and Rory Beggan. The midfield matchup will be interesting as well, with Kennedy potentially going up against Darren Hughes. Do think Monaghan have the better midfield of the two, but I don't know, you know, it's going to be a close one. It's going to be interesting, and it's a very hard one to call. So I'm going to go with Tyrone to win it by a point. I think this could be extra time. I mean, this could be penalties. I just have a feeling that Tyrone, you know, because they'll have players coming off the bench that can make an impact and a difference more so than Monaghan, with the fact that they'll probably bring Cathal McShane off the bench, and you obviously have Paul Donaghy as well. Like just looking at Tyrone's bench in particular that came off the bench, you know, that players that came off the bench in the Donegal game, like Cathal McShane came on, scored a point, Tiernan McCann scored 3 points, and obviously Conor McKenna scored a point as well. Like, that's a big difference. Like, they're bringing some top players off the bench. Like, Paul Donaghy didn't even come on the last game. You've Michael Bradley in there as well. Like, a lot of players to come off the bench for Tyrone, and I think that will make a difference on the day, and I think that will probably be the key difference. Is Tyrone's bench. And look, Monaghan have had a brilliant year. You know, even if they lose this game, I think they have made progress under Banty McEnany, which was a question mark going over Monaghan coming into this year's championship. You know, at one stage Monaghan could have been going down to Division 2. Instead, they'll be staying in Division 1, and they've gotten to an Ulster Final. So they've really kind of turned their season around, considering they didn't win any games in the group stages of the league. So, you know, it is going to be intriguing, it is going to be interesting, but ultimately I'm going to go with Tyrone to win it by a point. I think they'll just have a bit more going forward, and I do think Monaghan have defensive issues in there. We've seen Armagh exploit them. I've been impressed. I mean, Donegal kind of cut through Tyrone at different stages as well. Tyrone have looked a little bit vulnerable defensively as well. I mean, this could be an absolute humdinger. This could really be like both sides going at it. We've seen the Armagh Monaghan game was an absolute classic. This could really be it. I really can't call it, to be honest, but I'm going to go with Tyrone to edge it. I think they have a bit more experience in these big games in Croke Park, and I do think they've better options coming off the bench. So Tyrone to win it by a point. But anyway, lads, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned for the hurling preview. That'll be out tomorrow. 2 games, of course, taking place in this weekend's All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship to run through. So stay tuned for that. That'll be out tomorrow. And yeah, I'll see you all later.